Hey,
Hi.
party people.
Hello.
Hello.
Happy day. What day are we on? Where are we at?
Wednesday.
Wednesday.
It's hump day.
It's a hump day. That makes
hump day.
sense. That makes so much sense for today.
Yes. Hello, everybody.
Hello. Hello. Hello.
I'm so glad that all of you guys are here.
Yeah.
Look, we got a party. We got a proper party going on right now.
Yeah.
This is awesome. And I would love to welcome my friends to the chat for the first time. John Digital here is my friends Karen and Jonathan.
Yeah.
And they are hanging out in Portland right now in the chat with us, which is great. And I actually had Karen on as a guest maybe a year and a half ago or something like that. She's a climate scientist, like a sea level rise scientist. So we did an awesome episode all about that, all about the science behind the sea level rise, especially in Florida. And that, if you are interested in seeing that, you can go on the YouTubes and you can watch that very article. That's amazing.
Very true. You can do that.
Yeah, so I'm so glad that you guys are in the chat right now. That's awesome. Draconis, welcome back. Hello, we're happy to have you.
Yeah.
Chid in the
Hello,
house. Chid came in humping.
Came in humping.
I mean, how else is he supposed to come in?
Always. Kirby, thank you for that resub. That's
Yeah.
nice. Appreciate you.
Woohoo. 17 months.
17.
And you're on a 15-month streak. That's crazy.
That's a long time.
That is so awesome.
a long
I'm so
time.
glad. I love it.
Thank you for doing that. You might not be able to have your own kitties, but you're supporting our kitties by doing that.
You are.
So,
Thank you.
You're
That's
giving them
awesome.
food, and that's very nice of you.
Oh, and it says we're close to a hype train. 10 seconds on a hype train.
Wow, already?
That's okay. We don't even need to hit a hype train. I just like the fact that
But
we got
that's
close to it. That's awesome. That's fucking
Yeah.
rad. And thank you, Jonathan, for those bits. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
thanks for those bits.
Before we even got started, that was
Rad.
fucking awesome.
Yeah,
Thank you guys.
you're number one in the bit chain right now.
Yeah.
Bit giver. Number one bit giver.
Yeah.
Cheerer.
The cheerleader.
The cheerleader is what that would be.
Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, so glad to have you guys back. Sorry I missed Monday's stream. We were going to do the stream on Monday, but Justin was in town and we were totally planning on doing the stream and having them here for the stream, but we ended up going down to the beach and hanging out with Justin's uncle, and we had so much fun. We went and got like an epic fish dinner. It was fucking amazing at Duke's. It was so good. And we were just having a good time. And we could have just left, and I would have had a good time here too. But we were just having a really nice time, so we decided to just stick it out. And he doesn't get to see his family too often, so it was neat. And his uncle's super duper cool. So
And he had already streamed. They did, what, 2 streams that day? Didn't they have 2 streamers? Was it that day?
not that day. No, it was the day
The
before.
day before?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it was
Yeah.
on Sunday.
Gotcha.
They did
Yeah,
like
That's right.
6 hours of streaming
Yeah.
with setup and breakdown and everything. So we could have cut up and had a good time. It would have been awesome. But I just was like, you know what? It's okay. So
Yeah, shout out to Dukes.
fucking Dukes
Love
was
Dukes.
good, dude. I got
Their
the
chowder.
hazelnut crusted halibut, and I got a dinghy of the lobster chowder, which was good. And we got a crab dip, and I got this it's a scallop wrapped in bacon with this like maple honey sauce. It was real fucking good.
I definitely should have eaten before this
It
stream.
was really good. Sorry.
That was okay.
Yeah, it was it was good, but I did miss you guys. So yeah, it's on Alki, and it is a like fancy pants fish restaurant that is like
There's one in Alki and there's
legit.
one somewhere else too. Up north
there is
somewhere.
another one. Yeah, I can't remember where the other one is, but it's really
I
good.
want to say Green Lake or something like that.
We ate
but
a lot of fucking food. It was great.
it's the only thing to do at Dukes. And that view from there is real good too.
Yeah, you're right on the water.
Right up
so
on the beach.
It was pretty good.
Sunsets from Dukes are good.
It was. Yeah. I mean, it wasn't sunset when we were there, but I've seen some sunsets from that. It's really good. It's nice. But that's why we were missing in action on Monday. I'm so sorry.
Yep.
But we're here today.
Ta-da.
Hey.
All right.
Oh, that's cool. You've been there. Hell yeah, princess.
Nice.
Cool. Yeah, it's great. Made an impression on you.
Yeah.
How could you forget?
I mean, can't forget Dukes.
That sourdough bread too. Damn it.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Always
but
good.
it's cool. We're back today with part 2 of our deep dive into We Are All so different. And I
So
really enjoyed last Wednesday's episode. I thought it was really awesome. We talked about genetic differences that we all have and like weird, bizarre things that we have and we just assume other people have and maybe they don't even have, or vice versa. You know, we assume people don't have certain things and they do. And I thought this was a really good subject matter to bring up as far as our perception of the world, how we all perceive things differently. We all have different physical traits and attributes and different ways of perceiving things. And when we realize truly that everybody around us experiences the world so differently, I think it makes us a little bit more patient with each other. It should hopefully make us a little bit more
Sure.
patient with each other.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, realizing how differently we all take in everything is, I feel like that is something to take into account and really opened up my eyes about why people are the way that they are. You know, whenever we say everyone's different, we're way different than we thought.
yeah. You know, it's funny. So what prompted the whole subject was the thing that we saw on the internet where some people can smell ants and some people can't smell ants. And I've never heard of people smelling ants before in my life. No one's ever brought up the smell of ants. It's never been a topic of discussion. And I thought it was so interesting where I'm like, people can smell ants? And I was like, oh my God, and people that I know, did they smell ants? I was like, to Dusty, I'm like, do you smell ants? And he's like, no, what are you talking about? And I was like, okay, all right, we're on a fucking team.
Yeah.
We're on a team. But today we were over at Justin's uncle's house before I brought him to the airport. And I was like, hey, I have a really random question for you. And he's like, what's up? And I was like, can you smell ants? And he's like, yeah. He's like, yeah, I can totally. There's certain ones I can smell more than others. And he didn't even like question it. And I looked at Justin and we were like, oh, this guy's a fucking ant smeller. And he's like, yeah, totally.
Like an
Like,
ant
if they come inside the kitchen, he's like, I can totally like kind of smell where they're at. He said they smell like kind of bitter and sour or whatever. It's so fucking weird.
Yeah.
And he said when you squish them, you can smell them a lot more, is what he was saying too. So that's like the common thing. But it was funny because there was some ants on the pole, and which is what made me think to ask him. There was these like big fat black ants on the pole. And I was all, can I smell the ants, man? I can't smell the fucking ants. I was trying to smell them, and I can't smell them. It's a genetic thing. I just cannot. I don't have the sniffer for it. Actually, Jonathan and Karen, since you guys were not here last week, do you smell ants?
Yeah. Can you smell them?
It's such a
yeah,
strange
there was people
thing.
talking online. There was one lady saying that her kid would know not to go over to certain areas of the playground because the kid could smell that there were ants over there. Could just like smell the anthill and be like, "Don't go over there. There's ants." And she's like, "What?" And he's like, "I could smell them." Like, okay.
It's very strange.
Jonathan says no. No ant smelling.
No ants. Okay, for both of you guys. Okay, super weird. It's weird that the people that smell ants think it's super weird that we can't. So that was what prompted the whole conversation last week. Was how do we all see things, and we all have such weird little quirks that are unique to us. Some of us have more quirks than others. I've got apparently a bunch of really rare weird quirks all at one time. You know, and some people are a little bit more standard and might have like one weird thing here and there. So it kind of makes you think like, what is normal at this point? Because everybody is so uniquely different.
Don't crows roll around and get high off something on the ants?
Sarah Cruz. Whoa.
Yeah,
I don't know. I didn't know about that. Really?
I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if crows figured out some way to get high and we're doing it. No,
From
they're
ants.
smart, but
Interesting.
I don't know.
I don't. Well, you know what? We're gonna look it up. We're gonna fucking look it up right now.
They play and they roll.
I'm sorry, I forgot. This computer is not recommended right now.
Nope.
Okay. Do crows get high on ants?
That's true. Dolphins pass around pufferfish. That's true. But dolphins are known for being playful and playing with anything, really. especially if something looks like a ball. They really like ball things. Balls.
Okay, so some scientists think that the ants have a soothing or pleasurable effect on the skin. The act of anting to get high has been recorded amongst several species of birds, such as the blue jay, the hoopoe. I've never even heard of that bird in my life.
Nope.
Sounds cool. The common starling, the mockingbird, the kestrel, the raven, the crow, and the chaffinch.
Chaffinch.
Chaw. That is very
Weird, yeah.
interesting.
So is it like rolling around and getting like bit by them and it gets them high, or is it?
This one is saying they think that it's about the cleanliness. So ants have defensive secretions, chemical weapons they use to fight off other insects and fungi. So if you smear what they've got all over your feathers, you're stealing their fungicides, insecticides, and biocides.
Okay.
How do they fucking know that? How do they?
I don't know,
No.
man. That's weird. Okay.
Damn, they rub the ants on themselves. So some people think maybe they get high, but they think the formic acid found in ants helps birds ward off parasites. That's fascinating.
Yeah.
They chew them up and then spit them on their feathers and roll around. What?
Yeah.
Dolphins pass around pufferfish, so why not? Let's do
Yeah.
it. Nature is super weird. It's really bizarre.
Yeah, it says once the ants begin running around on the crow's feathers, the birds grab the ants and rub them on themselves. Okay. That's
That
weird.
is quite weird.
That's very weird.
I like that. Thank you
Didn't
for
know that.
sharing
That's
that
a-
little bit of information.
That's a
there.
whole
So
other
that was
episode we're
cool.
going to have to go into.
Yeah, that's,
We're also
super
different
fucking
from
weird.
birds because apparently we can't get high from ants.
Yeah,
Not that we know of.
weird.
So let's see. So last time we talked about all like physical differences. So let's kind of recap some of the things we were talking about that were rare. So like we talked about eye colors being rare. We talked about we went into a lot of smell coming from the ants. So like smelling like asparagus pea and like what
Yeah,
that
that's a
smells
super
like to
weird thing.
people.
I can pull up the little list.
Yeah. What was our list that we were looking at? 'Cause there was a lot of things we ran through, but it was all physical stuff, right? So like extra fingers that some people have. We talked about the
Now, if you need to
one
Oh,
tribe that most of them can hold their breath for up to like 13 minutes because they're all they all catch their food underwater and they're free divers.
yeah, they're
Um,
genetically
so they're-
like
Yeah, their
changed.
pancreas was larger and held
Spleen.
more spleen. Pancreas,
Spleen.
Spleen was larger and held more oxygen, so that spleen helped them hold their breath longer.
Some people have an extra rib.
The extra rib, which is like up here in the collarbone somewhere.
That's so weird. And then heterochromia, 2 different colored eyes.
Oh, hi Indigo. Thank you for
Hello,
lurking.
Indigo.
Lurk away.
Yeah, thanks for coming to say
Thanks
hi
for
to
hanging
us.
out with us.
I hope you enjoy
chilling.
everything while you're working.
Yeah.
We talked about the red hair anomaly,
Oh yeah.
which affects me. Weird. So there's a lot of weird things that come from being a redhead, which we talked about. We
Yeah.
talked about the rare golden blood
Oh yeah.
thing, which only affects 40 people in the world. Some people regulate cholesterol. They can never get high cholesterol ever. It's super weird, but some people have it.
Yeah.
Some people have a small hole in their ear on the top outer part of their
Yeah.
ear.
Which is
Which
like a
is a weird-
remnant of something.
They think that it might be a remnant from gills,
Oh.
which I don't know
Okay.
how or why that would apply to us in any kind of way. So nobody really knows, but they were thinking it might have something to do with gills at some point.
Yeah.
Before we
Yeah,
kill
Sarah, the golden blood, it's not color. They call it that because it's so rare and it's what was it? What was that steel?
RH,
It-
no. There's no RH in it.
Yeah, so they could donate to literally anyone, right? Was that what it was?
Yes.
Like yeah, it was just a highly sought after in donors. So they called it
It's compatible with
golden.
other rare blood types in the Rh family.
Okay.
So it helps people that have really
And it said that there are 9 active donors in all of America. Out of all the blood donors, there's 9 of them
crazy.
that have this rare type. So super rare.
yes. Also rare is super color vision, where you have an extra cone in your eye. Some people have extra cones so they can actually see substantially more color than the rest of us, and we would have no way of knowing what it is that they are seeing, which that's the trippiest part about talking about all of this stuff, is that somebody that sees extra colors would have no idea for a while until it came up in conversation that they are seeing more than other people.
Yeah.
And there's no way for us to have any idea what green looks like to them or whatever, or chartreuse or whatever, they
Yeah.
can see such different variations, and we don't see it at all. So even with words, there's no way to explain this is how I see this thing. And that's where I think people end up butting heads and having arguments with each other a lot of times, is because it's like, well, I see it like this, how can you not see it like this? Like, some people just can't see it.
Yeah.
So
true.
patience is important, to be able to try to use your words the best you can to explain, but when it comes down to it, somebody might never be able to see it the way that you see it.
Yeah. Yeah, like with the color blindness, and when they made those glasses so that people with color blindness could see with the full spectrum of color like everyone else can, and there were people that were breaking down into tears whenever they put them on, because they never knew what it was they were missing, and all of a sudden they could see the world in ways that they never even thought that was there. But so without something like that, though, how are we ever gonna, how do we know? But we have to remember that we don't experience the world like everybody else does.
Yeah.
Link, hello Link.
What's up, Link?
Nice to see you.
Hi.
Thanks for coming in.
We're glad you're here. Oh, Kirby might have an extra cone.
Really?
Interesting. Wow, you've done some color tests.
Yeah.
That's so neat. There's no way for me to know what that would be like.
Yeah.
And that sucks, because I want to see all the colors.
Yeah.
And Astara is a super taster. We talked about that last week. And that is an interesting little physical anomaly trait, too, is people that have much more intense taste.
Yep.
Larger taste buds, physically.
Yeah.
And
Stara and
have much more
somebody
intense.
else in the stream last time too. Was a super taster.
Is it Draconis?
Was it Draconis?
I can't remember
I
off the top of my head right now.
don't remember. It was one of our dude guys, but I don't remember who it was.
Yeah,
But somebody else was also
Either
a
way.
super taster and had the larger taste buds and everything.
that's like fascinating to me.
Oh, and
That is
doing
so
the
No, not you.
the beer
Okay. Who was it?
tastings and like the wine tastings and stuff. Who was it that was doing that? I'm a terrible stream host, but there was someone.
There was. But yeah, it's just really neat to find out these things about people that we would have no idea unless we're actually talking about it in the moment.
Draconis has the super hearing. Nice.
Wow, super hearing. That's amazing. Everything is spicy. Dang. Because you're so much more sensitive to the actual heat, huh?
What?
Went into a black hole in your back? Oh,
went into a
shit. Did
black
you get
hole?
spaghetti fried?
Oh, spaghettification is not good.
Well, that's awesome. I'm glad you're back.
Yeah, thanks for coming back.
We also talked about some people that don't have wisdom teeth, like this guy. So yeah, it's cool. Last week was really neat. We covered a lot of really neat physical traits
Yeah.
that people, some people have, some people don't have. But I think talking about it is great because it kind of gives everybody the chance to, I don't know, open up a dialogue with people, figure it out, talk to people about weird stuff that you would never really think about before. So I'm loving it. And today, we're going to talk about the inner workings of the mind. And so not only how we physically perceive the world around us, but how we, from our mind's eye, perceive the world. And it's so interesting. We've talked quite a bit on and off on this stream about perception and in many different forms. We've discussed it, but specifically we've brought up quite a few times about the third eye, about people that can see inside of their head and people that cannot see inside of their head. They just have blackness inside of their head. Some people have no inner dialogue. Some people can't hear songs inside of their head. Some people can hear it, you know, in different ways. It gets translated into different ways. Like you were telling me, you know, you hear it in your own voice. It's different. So we're going to talk about a lot of this stuff about inside of our minds, the things that a lot of times we will just assume that that's how everybody thinks. Everybody processes information in this kind of way. And until I was, I don't know, in my 30s, I had no idea that people thought differently and that kind of. I knew that people have different opinions and think differently in that kind of way, but the act of thinking, I can't believe somebody that has no inner monologue whatsoever, like can't hear their own voice inside of their head.
Yeah.
But that's how mind-blowing it is. The fact that you can't imagine what it would be like how do you think without having this inner dialogue? That's how I have no idea how you can actually visualize fucking anything without having a visual inside of your head. It's like, it's craziness.
One of the things we're going to talk about is going to take your hyperphantasia and blow that out of the water. It goes further. So we'll get
out of here.
Yeah. It's a newer one, and it's called prophantasia, which is trippy. They're just now finding it over the past, recent years. They're just now finding people that have this and learning about it.
Interesting. Okay, well then we should talk about that. But for those who do not know, Kirby. So phantasia just means seeing. So there's aphantasia, which is people that cannot see inside of their head, and then there's people with hyperphantasia that see extra vivid. So if they just have fantasia, that's regular, average. Yeah. You can see inside of your head. If I say, picture a moose, in a canoe or something like that, you can see a moose in a canoe, but you might not have an entire landscape that it's in. You might not see all the details, but you can at least make a moose be in a canoe in a visual form in your fucking head.
Yeah.
So, I'd like to take a poll, I guess, from the chat right now. So me just explaining that. What do you guys feel like you have? Do any of you have aphantasia, where you cannot see inside of your head? Do you just feel like you are, average? Do you have hyperphantasia, where your visuals in your mind are extremely detailed? And then I guess we're going to learn about the super uber extra detailed one. But I'd like to see what it is that you guys know.
Yeah, Princess, I think Fantasia, I think the movie is actually a play on words of Fantasia with the PH and fantasy. So I think it's visualizing fantasy is essentially what they were doing with the movie Fantasia. I think. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure that's what was happening. But yeah, Fantasia with the PH means to see, sight. Aphantasia with an A in front of it, like Astara spelled it up above. That's lack of sight, so no inner vision. And then there's hyperphantasia, which is more than normal, and being able to picture 360 and fully immersing yourself in an area, seeing all the details and in full color.
Okay, so Sarah believes she has more hyperphantasia. The roommate has aphantasia. Astara has hyperphantasia. Chid said a moose can't stabilize itself in a canoe, and that's pretty messed up. So, you're not wrong about that. But Chid, how do you see in your head?
Do you see that moose stumbling around in a canoe, or do you not see that moose?
Okay, it looks like Dracona's hyper. Okay.
Bye, bye, bye.
Interesting. So you're very detailed. Okay, so you know what I'm gonna do? We're gonna do a test, real quick here. Okay, so Link is like, okay, that's slightly less Fantasia than average, but not aphantasia. Okay,
And
so
it is like a scale. So it's not, this or that. There's a scale.
okay, so what I'd like to do. Okay, we're gonna migrate from the moose first. Well, you know what? Why don't we just stick with the fucking moose? Okay, we're gonna stick with the moose in a canoe. Every single one of you guys, when I said a moose in a canoe, you had some kind of visual in your head. So I want you to take a moment now that we're thinking of like take a minute and really look at that picture in your head. Is there a background? Is there detail specifically on the moose? What color is the moose? Can you change the color of the moose on a dime just by thinking about it? If you really like focus in, can you see this entire world in your head, or do you have to like really work at it to get it to do that, or do you see nothing? So actually, you explained while these guys are taking a moment, and you can share it in the chat if you want to. You don't have to. How do you see a moose in a canoe in your head? Explain to people that probably would have a really hard time understanding, because I have a really hard time understanding. But I love to hear you try.
Yeah, it's a very difficult one for me to even put into words to myself. But we've had this conversation, so I kind of have an idea of how to explain it. So the way I would explain it is, I don't know how many of you are old enough to remember the Beverly Hillbillies, and if you remember the opening credits and the bubbling crude when he shoots the ground and there's the bubbling crude and it's like the black bubbling oil that comes up. So when I close my eyes and in my head try to picture things that are going on, like it's pretty much just black. All I got is the blackness because my eyes are closed. But if I sit and really meditate on it and think about it, the imagery kind of starts bubbling up out of that blackness, but it's black on black. So it ends up being just like kind of shapiness a little bit. But for the most part, I don't see anything. I have a knowing. It's just like an innate knowing of what it would look like. And I don't really know what sense that is that I'm using to get that. Like I don't even really understand where that picture is coming from, because whenever they talk about like, oh, the picture in your head, like, oh, I'm like, I don't have a picture in my head. My eyes are closed. It's black. Like it's nighttime. I don't know. Like it's just kind of like a understanding of what a moose in a canoe would look like, rather than seeing it and picturing it. It's kind of like a memory of what a moose in a canoe would look like, but not actually seeing it, not looking at it. Yeah, princess oil, that is. But yeah, if I sit and I close my eyes and I focus long enough, I can get basic imagery to kind of show up, but I don't really have control over that imagery. It's my mind running, and then it just kind of comes and goes like a.
You don't have control, so you can't be like, the moose is purple. Oh, there's polka dots on it or whatever. Like that's not anything that you can do.
But I know what purple with polka dots would look like, so I can assume that would be on the moose. But it's an assumption. So it's almost like if I was in a black room and there's a ghost of a moose in a canoe in front of me, and it's just very faint. Like it would be the most that I'd really get.
And we were together for years before we ever had this conversation. And it was so mind-blowing to me when we had this conversation where he was like, I was like, yeah, I see it. Like, I see it in my head. And he's like, you see it? Like, you actually see it in your head? I'm like, well, yeah, it's a thought. Like, of course I see it in my head. What do you mean? Yeah. He's like, I don't see anything in my head. And I was just like, what the fuck do you mean about that? Like, it was just like totally blew my fucking mind, because we only have one brain. We only have one, inner voice or inner vision, third eye, whatever it is. So unless you have a conversation about it, we would always kind of assume that that's just how brains work, that there's a standard of how brains function and how they work. And then to just blow the doors on that wide open to realize, fuck no, everybody thinks of things differently. People's being able to remember things. I can remember things generally really well because it's not like full blown photographic memory, but I take like Polaroids in my head or like a screenshot. I kind of call it like it's a screenshot. It was Polaroids back when I was younger. Now it's a fucking screenshot. But like I can kind of like pull up a visual image. So if somebody like, let's say somebody comes into karaoke and they write their name down on a slip, the name's Jason or something like that. I might struggle later to remember their name, and I'll be like, hold on. And I can like flip through the files and I can pull back like a screenshot of their karaoke slip and see their name written down like in their handwriting, and then I can pull it back and I'm like, got it, Jason. Like I'm actually reading it, you know, and it would be a lot harder. I know it's really hard for you to remember people's faces and names and a lot of details, even just like what are we doing on Sunday. Like you have a really hard time remembering that because if there's no visual attached to it, recall has to be substantially harder.
Yeah, it's very abstract as far as what it's attached to.
And you know what, I just thought about something for the first time while we're talking about this. We recently talked about facial blindness and how you're like, I think I have facial blindness. If you can't recall and pull an image of this person's face, how the fuck are you supposed to remember their face easily?
Yeah.
I think that probably has a big part of it is you do not have that this is this person's face. I remember seeing this person in this environment because I can just zone in. Sometimes I don't remember. I'll be like, I recognize you, but I can't place where. Or sometimes I'm like, I don't recognize you at all. But a lot of times when I do recognize people, I'm able to kind of associate them with things, and it's a visual thing that I can pull up. So I think that there might be an interesting direct correlation, which I would love to do a study on this or see if there is any studies on this. Those that have facial blindness, that struggle with facial blindness and with memory recall in general, do they more commonly have aphantasia?
Yeah. That'd be an interesting study for sure. Yeah.
I bet so.
Real quick, going back, so chat was just going, but I did see that, so Link says he can't see a bigger picture. It's like he's zoomed in. So he's got the moose in the canoe, but can't really change it.
Okay.
Astara, she's got, like, nighttime, there's a moon. Astara's got all of that going on.
I love it. The moose is trying to stand up. That was its big mistake.
Yeah, step one.
And my moose wasn't standing up until you said that. And then I saw immediately the moose trying to stand up and being all, oh, and he has this look on his face. Like, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I
And
love
then Kirby's got whole background as well. Watching from the shore, the moose is chill, strangely calm about being in the canoe, which is very weird for a moose because they're not chill about canoes.
Yeah.
And then Princess saying, I could see the moose in the boat and the water and all that, but now I'm interested in the Beverly Hillbillies. Yeah.
It's all pictured in my brain, no problem.
Yeah. And yeah, Astara, I can describe things verbally better than I can see them, like for sure. So it is like it's a knowing. I know what a moose in a canoe would look like, but I can't picture that until maybe if I sat down and drew it, you know. But I could Photoshop it for sure.
And that blows my mind too, how an artist, a visual artist, can have no inner vision like that. Like, I don't know. I have no idea how this works. It's so fucking fascinating. How you can come up with a design for something without being able to fucking see it.
Well, that's why most of my work evolves as I go. That's why I have to sit down and start doing it. Like, I get like a basic idea of kind of what I want to do. But it's just like a thought and something to try, and it's a starting point. And as I'm going and seeing it, I'm building it as I see it.
Wow.
So like with some of my drawings and stuff, like I'll have, you know, an idea of like what I want these eyes to look like. Well, I draw the eyes out, and then as I do that, I build the rest of the creature based on that. I don't have an idea of what that whole creature's going to look like. So with most of my stuff, I'm just as surprised as anyone else is what I drew. Like I have no idea what I'm sitting down to do. It's more of a stream of consciousness type of thing.
That is so cool. because for me, it's tough. It stopped me from doing art when I was younger for a while because I'd have this vision in my head of how I wanted it to be, but I wasn't able to execute it properly. And then I felt like I failed at what I was trying to do because it was so clear in my head and I don't have the skill level to match up the clarity of what is coming out. So it really would bother me where it was like, this sucks because I cannot get out what is in my head properly.
Yeah.
But me and you as a team, when we're working on design stuff together, that is like so fun. I love doing that because
Yeah.
he'll be like, okay, you know, this is the project, this is what I've got to come up with, and I can be like, okay, what it can look like this, or it can look like this, or you can try this and this. I can just keep coming up with all these ideas like over and over, and I have a very clear visual picture, so it's kind of fun when me and him work together because I can be like, okay, I'm seeing this flyer like this, and he's like, okay, describe it to me, and I'll describe it, and he'll start, and I'll have to be like, yes on this, but no on this. Like, I need you to try this and do this kind of thing, you know? Like, I love being able to take what's in my head and watch that unfold. It's really cool. And I love you being able to do that. You're very skilled as far as that goes, but it's just mind-blowing how you can,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah,
like,
that's why,
not
like,
have a visual.
Astara, you're asking if I sketch things out before I work on them, and sometimes I do. If it's something very specific that I have to do, and like I really have an end goal in mind, then sometimes yeah. But for the most part, honestly, I don't like sketching things out because I don't want to draw the same thing more than once. I don't like that. It feels inefficient to me, and I don't do it. Just like in school, whenever we were doing life drawing classes, and they're like, first you do the underdrawing of like, here's a circle where the head will be, and you do the little stick figure. I don't like doing that. I just started drawing what I was looking at, and my teachers hated it. All my instructors hated it. But I'm like, I don't want to do things that are not necessary for me. So if it's something that I'm really aiming for and I need it to be in a very specific position, then yeah, I'll kind of sketch it just to put that visual in my head or to get the sizing down. But generally, I have a rough idea and I just start going on it and just let it kind of evolve. Like I've kind of learned how to work with it because when I was younger, like you were saying, having like getting annoyed that you couldn't draw what was in your head, I struggled with that as a kid too, like not being able to have this image and make it come out like that on paper, and I gave up on that, and I had to figure out how to work with my own, abilities and skills that I've got. And once I figured out how to draw from my head, which was me figuring out how to do stream of consciousness drawing, then it got way better. But yeah, I don't like just sketching random things forever. We've got one friend who will sketch. He does all the studies, and like if whatever he's doing, he'll just sketch over and over and over the same thing in different positions, all different angles, and he'll do it for, maybe a couple weeks before he sits down and actually does the painting. And his paintings are amazing. He's extremely talented, and I love it. But looking through his sketchbook, I'm like, how do you not lose your mind? Like, I could never just sit and draw the same thing over and over. But it works for some people, and I'm just too lazy for all that, really. If I'm doing something, I better be doing it for the last time. Gotcha. Oh yeah, it was just somebody was wanting to offer us something. So,
Okay, I didn't know someone came in and they're like being
no, it was-
crude because
yeah.
sometimes that does happen. I missed it and I was like, oh, it's deleted. I don't even know what it
Yeah.
said. Damn, I missed it.
No, just a sales thing.
Okay,
But
good.
we got it. We're good.
Okay.
Don't worry, Chid. Got your back. We take turns modding.
I love Draconis is saying that, like, okay, now it's in the style of Dolly. Like, I love that. I love how some of us are able to morph that and change that, like, on a dime. Like, I could give him, like, costume changes. Like, bam, 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 costume changes. Okay, now he's in a suit, Like, oh, now he's even fancier. Now he's in a tux, Now he's got a tutu on, Like, you can just go through all of them like that. It's so interesting.
Yeah. Astara accidentally copied it. So there you go. That's what was said.
Thanks, Star. That's so funny. Good job. Oh, it's absolutely
Yeah, and I think
fantastic.
where this conversation came up for us, we took a meditation course years ago, and coming through all the different visualization techniques that we were running through, we'd sit around in a group, and after we ran through the thing, we'd talk about what it was that we visualized, what we see, what were the meanings behind it, figuring out your own language with yourself, and in that, I realized that what I was seeing and what she was seeing were two completely different worlds, and whereas mine was like a basic, like we're picturing a rose and you have to picture all the details on the rose, and I've got it's red, there's a thorn on it and there's a leaf. She's like got this whole land that the rose is sitting in, and like it's got this backdrop to it, and like there's so many different details that she was coming up with that I was like, man, your mind just goes crazy with it. And she was like, I don't know, it's just what I see. And I was like, wait, like you see it, like physically see it, like a photo? You're seeing this in your head like a photo? And she's like, yeah. I'm like, oh, I don't have that.
It's a photo, but it's kind of more like I guess like a movie. But there's still frames where I can just step back and I can look at the still frame. But I remember in that meditation class they said, okay, I want you to picture a room. This is going to be your safe room, and this is no one else's room. You're going to decorate it how you want. This is your comfy space. Have all the things that make you comfy in this space. This is going to be the space that you go to before you go to other places. It's like, cool. Man, my room was fucking awesome. Had all the shit to it. It was like this whole room, and I could walk around like in 3D and knew where every single thing was, and I could zoom in, let's say, okay, like from far away, kind of like just in real life. You could see a shelf unit, china cabinet from afar, and you don't know what all is on the china cabinet if you're too far away, but you can see there's a bunch of stuff on it. But if I go up to the china cabinet, I can actually see all the little things that are there. And if I'd be like, ooh, I really want a cool skull right there, I could be like, boop, neat, I have a skull. Like, oh, and there's crystals around it, sick. Like I can just like design it and have it evolve. But there's this kind of baseline that automatically is there. This like blank, not a blank canvas. It's like a foundation that gets laid. If it's like, okay, a room in a Victorian house, I immediately have a visual of a room in a Victorian house, but I can be like, oh, I don't like that color wallpaper, or like, oh, I want this wallpaper instead, and I can totally change it around like that. But just when you say Victorian room, before I even have a chance to think about details that I would specifically want in a Victorian room, I already see a fucking Victorian room. It already totally exists. Where does it come from? I don't fucking know. Because it's not necessarily a room that I've seen before. But it's all these elements of Victorian culture and whatever that get popped in there. But somehow my mind is an architect, and it creates a physical space, like dimensions of the room and where the windows are. Like, why does it do that? I don't have to say, okay, let's think of what is the shape of the room. Let me go from there. Let me start with the shape. And okay, now what does it have as far as furniture? Like, it doesn't do that. I just have this automatic, like, in a millisecond.
Yeah.
It just pops up. It's so fucking weird.
Hi, One Love. Welcome in.
One Love, what's up?
One Love.
Welcome back. We're happy you're here.
Yeah. Yeah.
So are we seeing something real or making it up? I don't know. Some of it, I don't know. Honestly, I wonder. Am I tapping into a room that actually exists in a physical space in this world that somebody else has lived in, has existed in, and somehow I am tapping in to that? I mean, maybe. There's no way for me to know because I have not seen every Victorian room in the world, I wish that I knew. But moose in a canoe, I've never seen a moose in a canoe. It's probably never happened. A nice, happy moose in a canoe. But that still feels so very real to me. So I doubt that already existed. That's something that my brain makes this whole thing going on. But it's like a split second, and being able to move around it is interesting. And then being able to observe movement too. Like talking about like, oh, the moose tried to stand up and whatever. Like he was still before, but then all of a sudden when she said that, now it's like roll film, and now it's moving around. You know, so.
Which is interesting because for me, like when you say Victorian room, I don't see the room. I don't see the space. I get more of like a mood board, where it's like like the ideas of what the styles of the chairs would be. There's candelabras. There's going to be like the wallpapers and the colors, like the textures and stuff. I kind of see those are going to be in there, but I don't see a space that's all fucking set up as a room. It's an idea of the things that would be in this Victorian room and what would make it a Victorian room rather than being in this space. So it's like a mood board, kind of like flashes of random stuff that just kind of come out.
That's so interesting. See, fucking Sarah, same thing.
Same thing.
I said Victorian room, bam, Victorian room, booyah, you know? Yeah. And Astara, I love that you said that, actually. One of my dream things that I've always wanted to do was to make a dollhouse, I guess. It's not really for dolls, but like the miniature houses, like super detailed ones. And actually, for my birthday a couple years ago, my mom bought me, it's a Victorian house kit. I chose the one that I wanted. It was pretty pricey. It's pretty big. And I just need to have a space that I can work on it because of the cats are going to fuck shit up if I just have it all laid out somewhere where they would just ruin everything. So I need to figure that out. Now that we have the office, I'm thinking about trying to make that happen. And I need to get all the things. It's very expensive. It adds up a lot. But I really, 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 really want to do it because I do love creating a space and having something in my mind and being able to actually make that a real physical thing. That's going to be like the fucking best. I'm going to be so excited about that.
Yeah.
So what scale is it?
Isn't it like 3/8 or something like that? Is that what it is?
1/4/8, I think. So this is kind of a bummer. And I didn't know this at the time when I chose that house. Most of the furniture, most of the miniature things are on a different scale than the house that I got. Oh. Which sucks.
Are they larger or smaller than the house?
My house, the things would need to be smaller, I believe, to make it make sense. I need to look it up again and look at the dimensions and everything, but yes, so it's not the standard. I think it's 1/4/8, I think. If that's a number, I can't remember, but it's another one that's like the substandard. And that kind of sucks because it's a lot harder to find stuff for it. Like, I'm going to be way more limited in the things, and I did a lot of searching, actually, for miniatures, and I don't know what to do about that. I might just have to say fuck it and just do it in a different scale, do everything in a different scale, and hope that transfers over the way that I want it to. Yeah. I'm really excited about that, actually. It does sound like the fucking best, and I found a bunch of really cool, like, old Victorian wallpapers and, like, really cute little stuff. Like, I have so many ideas, and I just need to get this house going. I mean, there's a lot of rooms in it. There's stairwells. I mean, it's really cool, and I want to make it look really spooky. I want the outside to look real, kind of like tattered, like haunted house type of thing. There is a artist named Julie Steele who is on Instagram and Facebook, and she is the best miniature artist I've ever seen in my life. She does haunted fucking houses, and they are impeccable. You guys should totally check it out.
Yeah. And yeah, Astara, be sure to think of us whenever you do that. That would be awesome to go to that miniature
I'd love
show.
to go. Will you invite me? I'd love to go.
Yeah.
Oh my god, that'd be so awesome. Hey, welcome back, H Money.
Hey, H Money's back. Good.
Oh, I'd love to go with you. That would be amazing. In March, maybe I'll get it started then. I'll go and see what kind of stuff. Yes, it is 1/4/8. Okay, yep, that is the size it is. Yeah, and it's kind of sucks because it's a really good house. It took forever for me to find the right house. I wanted a really good Victorian house. It's really cool, but size-wise, it's not gonna be perfect. Yes, bring me to the best miniature store ever, please. Please, 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 please. Yes, yeah. I am totally in.
So I don't know if you had one. I had a video about aphantasia that I found that I had sent you.
Okay, that sounds great. Let's do that. So since we talked about your weird ass brain and how
It's way back
see
there.
nothing.
It's not weird. It's normal.
That's fucking so weird, dude. We don't all have the mind's eye. Aphantasia.
Yeah,
This one. Okay. Okay, we're gonna watch this video and we're gonna learn about this. It's gonna be super weird.
Close your eyes and picture a red apple. Now, is the apple that you're picturing actually red? For most people, the answer is, yeah, of course, that's what you asked me to do. But others might say, well, I don't actually see anything. No one sees something, right? And that is because some people don't have or use visual imagination, or what's sometimes called the mind's eye. And those folks can be kind of surprised to learn that it's not just a metaphor. This condition is called aphantasia, and it was only really noticed by the scientific community in 2010. But aphantasia is more than just a different way of experiencing the world. It's also a new window into how the brain processes imagination, emotion, and even memory. Broadly speaking, the scientific community first really learned about aphantasia after a man had what seemed like a small stroke and lost his ability to create visual imagery. After his story was covered on the news, 21 others contacted the original researcher to report similar experiences. Only for them, life had been that way as long as they could remember. As scientists studied these folks, they found that aphantasia falls on a spectrum. Some people report their visual imagination as just being less vivid, making them less likely to use it. Meanwhile, others seem to be unable to make visual imagery at all. If you were to ask a person in that second group something like how many windows there are in their home, they wouldn't picture every room. Instead, they would likely say they used knowledge or memory to answer your question. At first glance, it's tempting to chalk this up to miscommunication. Maybe what someone with aphantasia calls memory is actually what others might mean by mind's eye. But experiments have shown that there does seem to be something going on at a physiological level. For example, most people with sight experience an illusion called binocular rivalry. If a researcher shows each eye a different image, the brain can get overwhelmed and sometimes just ignore one. Like, say I flash red horizontal stripes to your left eye and green vertical stripes to your right eye. The odds are pretty good that your brain will just randomly pick one of those to focus on. But let's say you don't have aphantasia. If I tell you to visualize red horizontal stripes before the experiments start, you're more likely to see red than green. But if you do have aphantasia, the results basically stay 50-50. That suggests that the folks with aphantasia really do have less of a mind's eye. It's not a miscommunication. Now, as for why aphantasia happens, the discovery is so new that we really don't know yet. This idea is so new that we're not even sure how to pronounce the word yet. I say aphantasia, other people say aphantasia. I think aphantasia sounds better, and if we are collectively right now in the process of deciding what the pronunciation is, we should go with the cooler sounding one. But we're also not sure if it's something genetic that someone is born with or a trait that's acquired early in life. One thing we do know is that damage to the brain can remove some ability to generate visual imagery, like in that first identified case. More specifically, some patients who have acquired aphantasia later in life had damage in one of two key regions, either the occipital lobe, which processes visual input from the eyes, or the parietal lobe, which is responsible for keeping track of where things are in space. But there are also plenty of people with aphantasia who've never had any kind of brain injury, and looking at their brains has told us how they compensate for not having a mind's eye. Overall, it seems like these folks do it using brain areas including the anterior cingulate, which helps us identify errors or inconsistencies. This might help explain why these people perform just fine with memory tests like remembering facts or recognizing which images they've seen before. And a preliminary study from 2020 offered some insight into how this might work. The study involved 61 people with aphantasia, and the researchers asked them to study photos of different rooms in a house, then recreate them from memory. The participants generally used less color in their recreations, and on average, they remembered significantly fewer objects in the scene than a control group without aphantasia. But they were just as accurate with where they put those objects, and also had fewer mistaken additions that weren't in the original original pictures. To do all this, they seem to make use of verbal scaffolding, or descriptions that help them remember what was in the images and where. The researchers found that people with aphantasia also put more text on the drawings, and that they described storing the pictures as words and descriptions. Finally, studying aphantasia has also helped scientists realize that emotion can come from just visual imagery. Like, pretty much every person with sight gets a bit startled when they see a scary image. And researchers can quantify that reaction by measuring a change in how the skin conducts electricity. That's because you sweat a little more when you're stressed, and sweat conducts electricity better than dry skin. One study found that people without aphantasia can get a similar fear reaction just by reading a story designed to evoke vivid, scary images. But people with aphantasia don't respond that way. This means that emotions might be more connected to visual imagery than we realized, which could change how we think about improving mood and well-being. Overall, aphantasia has been a striking discovery, not only because it's teaching us things about the brain, but because it's a reminder of how different our everyday experiences can be from one another. Many with aphantasia don't realize for years or ever that they're experiencing the world differently. And these differences aren't a bad thing, but they are important, and the more we learn about them, the more we can understand what it's like to walk in each other's shoes. Thanks for watching this episode of SciShow Psych. This show is produced by Complexly, and we also make a bunch of other shows, including a new show that I'm excited about and hosting with my friend Sarah called Bizarre Beasts. Once a month.
Okay. That's so fucking weird. And there's nobody else in the chat that hasn't put you right now. It's very interesting. You're the only one.
Really?
Yep.
Interesting.
Sounds like it. I wonder your parents. I wonder if they have it. That would be interesting. I don't know if it has anything to do with genetics.
I don't know. Yeah.
You should do a what do you call it? Like an experiment with your family or something like that.
Yeah.
You should ask everybody.
Yeah.
We can't ask your dad, unfortunately, but
Yeah.
ask the people that are around and see if there's any kind of significance to that data.
Maybe so. I did also see that an informal family poll.
Yeah, there you go.
I did, in doing the research on this, learn that there's a lot of people who think that it can be, or that the mind's eye and the imagery can be learned, that it's a trait that you can actually gain that skill for. And not just gain the skill,
Really?
but also improve your own inner sight. And there were a couple videos I ran across that were like how to build it and improve
From
it.
nothing, or how to build it if you're someone like Link, who's like, I can see it, but I can't see it super detailed. Like, I feel like if you could already see it, then maybe you could focus and build upon that. But if you got nothing, how do you start without
Yeah,
a
I don't
foundation?
know. I would assume it's just your brain making neural connections and you figuring out how to, like, essentially open your third eye type of thing and like see.
Wow, that
see
would be
more
so
inside.
cool.
So I do wonder if it's something that you can learn, if it's something that is practiced. Just like this guy was saying that the people who can see just a little bit tend to just not use that because it doesn't help them out as much. So they just don't use their mind's eye as much as people who can see it very vividly because it's not their strongest tool in their toolbox.
I wonder if your memory would substantially improve if you were able to develop this skill.
Yeah, I don't know.
You might be able
It'd be
to
something worth
remember
looking into,
things
'cause
a little bit better. That'd be so interesting.
Yeah.
You get frustrated trying to picture things. Oh, that sucks. Well, maybe if you gave yourself, I don't know, 2 minutes a day or something like that, if it was something that interested you to do. But if you took like 2 minutes and you're like, okay, right now I'm going to visualize this place, and maybe every day you try to visualize the same thing and you try to notice more details in it each time, maybe that would help to build that a little bit.
Maybe, yeah. That's a good thought.
It's just an idea. I
Yeah,
think
so-
that would be really cool. You should
Yeah,
try it. You
it-
should try it and report back and see
Yeah.
if you feel like you get more clarity, and then over time, if it seems like you just automatically have more clarity after like exercising the third eye muscle or something like that.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, do the moose in the canoe.
Yeah, moose in a canoe. There you go.
Yeah,
start with
and I
that.
mean, with me meditating every day, a lot of the meditations I go through run through visualization, and I, just like he was saying, some people just don't use the visuals because they're not as strong. That's kind of how I take it. Like I visualize what I can and like try, but really, what I'm doing is like if they're talking about, like I don't know, you're taking a walk through a forest, it's more me focusing on the feeling of me walking through the forest and like experiencing that, and rather than seeing it. So I do some of the I try to visualize what I can, but I don't really focus on it and try too hard. I more focus on putting myself there emotionally and the physical sensations of what it would be to be there.
That's so fascinating. I don't even think I process the feeling as much now that we're talking about it. It's way more visual for me, and it's more focused. So if I'm like, you're in a, let's say the moose in a canoe, I'm more visually seeing it, but I feel like I'm physically removed from it. Like I'm not feeling like the breeze or the sun on me or the water droplets. Like I can, if you say in a meditation, guided thing or whatever, like feel the sun on you. I'm like, okay, there it is. But I have to like think about that.
Yeah.
So I don't feel like I'm physically processing like stimuli naturally, normally.
Yeah.
It's just way more visual. It's like super, super visual, but that's all that's coming through. So it's really cool that yours is so emotion based.
Yeah. And especially coming from all my studies lately about how emotion affects us physiologically, that's really where I'm trying to put myself, is I'm trying to affect my body physically in this plane and cross that boundary of metaphysical and physical. So the emotional state is really what I'm trying to embody the most.
Okay. That's cool. That's so cool. But these are things we would never fucking know. And ever since I learned that this was a thing, I ask people all the time. Comes up in conversation fairly frequently to me. It's like me asking Justin's uncle today, can you smell the ants? It's a similar type of thing where I'm like, hey, we're having this conversation. Check it out. I have a weird question to ask you. How do you see it in your mind? I think it's so interesting to see who does what and how everybody processes things. We have another friend, Stephanie, who has aphantasia, like big time.
Also an amazing artist.
Amazing artist.
Like far too good of an artist. She's amazing. One Love, you said same. You mean same about the emotional aspect of experiencing
Or
whatever?
same about asking people about it all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. You said same. But
Chid,
about
you're
that
so funny. Chid, tell me though. I want to know. I want to know how you see in your head. You keep avoiding the question, but I genuinely want to know. It's a serious conversation here.
yeah, we're serious.
I really would like to know. Genuinely. Help me know you better.
And Link said, I find it easier to imagine feeling weather than picturing the weather in my mind. Yeah, right? That's where I'm at too. Yeah, I can experience it more than I can see it, I guess.
Maybe that's something that would help me to try to focus a little bit more in those moments on feeling that space. That extra sense. It would make it more
robust.
Yeah, it would. It really would.
Oh, being able to feel the weather rather than picture.
Oh,
the
cool,
weather.
cool.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. That's very, very cool.
Super cool.
I love it. I love how different everybody is. It's so fucking cool. Okay, so now we've talked about lack of vision. So, what about the one you were talking about?
So the
now
one
I know
I was
about
talking
you.
about. So, okay, so I didn't really have a video on hyperphantasia, but I guess you guys got what hyperphantasia is. Hyperphantasia is like what Sammy's talking about, being able to be in the room, in the space, see the space, all the details are there, and Kirby, same thing, just being able to, as soon as somebody says something, you're there, you have it, you have a mental picture of some sort, give or take details here or there. So next we're going to learn about prophantasia, which is one that Jedi's being weird. One that I'd never heard of, and I think we should just do the video.
Okay.
I'll,
Okay, rather than try to explain it, they're going to explain it anyway.
I'll elaborate if, because I did read a little bit about it, but I think this video was the one that pretty much taught me what I know about it. So.
Ooh, I'm excited about this.
Yeah.
Good. Okay. Learning something new. It's the best.
Hey there, welcome back to Aphantasia Meow, and today we're going to be talking about the interesting phenomenon that's called prophantasia, or projecting mental imagery. Let's go.
Meow.
Yeah. Speaking of cats.
Ew, I just imagined that.
Okay, so prophantasia. This is a really interesting topic, a really interesting term. You could also call the ability of prophantasia, you could liken it to, visual hallucinations, intentional visual hallucinations anyway. Closed eye visuals is another name for this experience. Imposition is known as a term that the Tulpa community uses for this type of experience. So there's a lot of different names out there. Now, the term prophantasia itself was actually created by me back in the day. So when I ran across the research, in 2018, I ran across the 2015 research on aphantasia in the mind's eye. I also ran across the term hyperphantasia, which they termed at the same time. And when I ran across hyperphantasia, I was reading different accounts online about it. And I read that people were experiencing like being able to superimpose their visual imagination over what they see. But then people didn't always mention that either. I couldn't find like a baseline of that's what hyperphantasia is. But the baseline of what hyperphantasia was, at least back then in the research papers, was that people experiencing hyperphantasia would have a very, very vivid experience of their mind's eye, right? And so I was like, okay, but this superimposition of visualizations over your actual environment is something kind of different, almost like you're projecting holograms. And the reason why I knew that it was different, was because back in 2010, I actually developed that skill for myself. I wasn't always able to project images like that. Where I started out was my mind's eye was pretty average, or maybe a little above average. I'd have moments of very, very vivid experience. And over time, like growing addicted to meditation, I grew myself into the experience of hyperphantasia most of the time. It depends on what I'm thinking about. And then in 2010, I ran across a spiritual teacher who said that when he closes his eyes, he didn't just see black. It wasn't just in his head. He could actually see it. And I was like, what? I want to do that. I got kind of jealous. And so in my room, I just came up with a bunch of ways to practice, and I ended up developing this ability to project images out in front. Don't worry, I'll give examples of what this actually looks like in just a few minutes. So yeah, and then by the time I ran across, aphantasia and the different classifications, I recognized that projecting images was something very different than just thinking of them very vividly in your mind, okay? One is in your mind, you don't actually see anything. One is actually visibly seen. And again, we'll talk about that. So let's talk about what the different experiences are actually like, okay? First, let's start off with some descriptions. So the mind's eye, I found, at least after 3 years of working on this stuff with people, this is my best description of it so far. And it's hard to describe even now because it's so subjective, right? But the mind's eye could be considered a sense of seeing without ever actually seeing anything. It's a sense of seeing in thought form, okay, which doesn't require you to actually see anything. And that sense of seeing is what can rise up and down the spectrum, right, from aphantasia all the way up until hyperphantasia, common phantasia and hypophantasia in between. Okay, so I like the description that it's the feeling of seeing without seeing. That's my favorite personal description of what the mind's eye is like. Now, important to note about the mind's eye, when you close your eyes, it's all up here in your mind, and so the black space just stays black for most people, it seems anyway. We'll talk about that some more in future videos. But it seems like for most people, the black space just stays black, and they're thinking of the image somewhere in their thought space. Versus prophantasia, how I would describe prophantasia is anytime your imagination is starting to alter your visual field, your actual visual field, what you physically see. So it could appear like holograms in your physical environment in your room, or it could appear like slight changes to the black space similar to an after image. And next, I'd love to show you some like visual representations of what this phenomenon, what the experience is actually like. So let's check it out. Okay, so to really grasp how this thing of prophantasia is experienced, let's first talk about where you tend to visualize or where you see things from, okay? So on this graphic here, you can see that black space out in front, that black shape. And let's say that this person's eyes are closed, they're just seeing black in front of them. And let's call that the physical field of vision, okay? And then let's call this the mind's eye. And that's, you know, the abstract place or the non-physical place of where you think from, right? Most people, it feels like they think from their head, and so that's why we put the bubble in the head. It's not actually seeing anything back there, but we'll get to that. Okay, so we have these two different stages, so to speak, where you can visualize things on. Next, let's take a look at what somebody's experiencing when they see and when they visually imagine. So here, let's say this person is at a coffee shop. You know, this was actually my favorite coffee shop here in Wisconsin to work out of. And let's say they're at this coffee shop, and this is what they see with their physical eyes. Okay, that coffee, the table, the laptop, that's what they're seeing physically, right? At the same time, let's say we ask them to use their mind's eye. And let's say we ask them to imagine a cat, the proverbial imagine a cat, right? Well, this person starts to bring a cat to mind, and for whatever reason, they think of a cat in some lovely grass, right? And so this person may have, you know, slightly above average kind of visual quality to it. There's some details missing, as you can see. The color's not all the way there around the edges, but for the most part, they're able to think of this cat in pretty lifelike detail. This actually might even be like a hyperphantasic example. Okay, so note that the physical view didn't change, right? They had their eyes open still. They were just thinking of this cat playing in their mind, and they were able to quote unquote see that image playing out in their thoughts. Now let's take another common example, and let's say somebody goes, hey, can you imagine an apple on the table over there? And they go, well, sure, let me try. So they start by imagining the space first, so they create this mental image of the exact same thing, like a carbon copy of what they're looking at with their physical eyes, and then they add on top of that image, in their head, right, an apple. Now notice, this is hugely important, see how the physical view did not change, right? They're not actually hallucinating an apple on the table, they're creating a mental image in that place where they can think from, where, you know, the apple is now a part of the image, where in real life it's not. Okay, so now let's look at how prophantasia is commonly experienced. Now, prophantasia usually starts by generating this kind of slight staticky, sort of TV staticky looking stuff. And I'm going to show you right here. It usually starts by seeing this kind of stuff. Now, this stuff actually has a name in the medical community. We call it visual snow. Okay, visual snow. Now, it's up for debate what visual snow even is, in my book anyway. Because so often prophantasia starts with visual snow. Most of the medical community thinks that it's just noise in the ocular nerves going on and being picked up by your brain, by your vision center. I tend to think it may be something a little bit different. But prophantasia usually for people starts here. And actually with the students that I teach how to do prophantasia, this is what we start with, is seeing this staticky stuff.
Oh, shit.
Okay, next let's say the person wants to start projecting the image of a triangle out into their physical view. Now notice what happens. What starts to form is this kind of light outline of this shape of the triangle, right? And it kind of almost looks like the static bunches up around it or becomes stronger in that area, kind of like that. Now, really important to note, though, notice what's happening in the mind's eye. Absolutely nothing. Prophantasia actually doesn't require mind's eye activity. So instead, this person is pretty much ignoring the mind's eye space and putting all their attention in their physical field of view with their eyes closed, right? So that they can project this image of a triangle out in front of them. And really important to note that the mind's eye is not actually doing anything right here. So all their attention is on their physical field of view. Next, let's take a look at what it's like to project something into your field of view when your eyes are open. So here, this person's at the coffee shop still, and they're looking at this wall, right? Well, they start by projecting that staticky stuff. So here they become aware of that staticky stuff, and usually it's not quite this strong, but just for illustration's sake, I wanted to, make it clear what it kind of looks like. So And then they start to project the image of a triangle out onto the wall there. And here we can see like a very faint, kind of hazy, ghostly image of the triangle on the actual physical wall now. Again, mind's eye
That's
doesn't
interesting.
necessarily have to be doing
Can't
anything
do
at
that,
this
but
point.
I can see it.
Though,
in my
if somebody
eyeballs.
wants to, they could also be visualizing the wall in their head,
eyes closed.
and they could put that triangle out on the wall to help the projection process, kind of like this. Okay, so this is not a perfect representation, again, of what Prophantasia is like. It's pretty dang close, though. Like when I project images onto walls and stuff like that, this is pretty close to what it looks like. And so there is a range to how much you can experience or how vivid you can make these projections, but we're going to save that information for future videos.
Can you
Okay,
do
this was
this,
just to
Sarah?
give kind of the
Can you
foundational
project it?
information about what this experience is
that?
even like. So very, very distinct from mind's eye activity. Okay, so those are just some visual examples of what the experience of Prophantasia is like. Now, why is there so much confusion? If you peruse any, aphantasia forum or group or anything, there's always new people coming in saying, hey, but do regular visual imaginers, do they actually see anything?
Really?
And the answer is probably no. We'll talk about that actually in the next video. But this is why there's a lot of confusion, is because most of us always say, when we're just using our mind to see something, we still say that we see it, right? Hey, can you visualize the apple? You're asking your friend, right? You just found out about aphantasia, and they close their eyes and they're like, yeah, I see the apple, it's green. Well, we're using that word see. We're using the verb see to describe what's happening in our head instead of, and getting that confused with what we can actually see, right? And stuff like the red star test actually hasn't helped this scenario. That got passed around as a test. It wasn't created as a test. It was just created to be a representation of visualization. And as far as I could tell, the person that created it actually put a disclaimer on it. Hey, don't use this as a prescription method, right? Which, of course, people didn't listen to. And now that's been passed around as the benchmark of visualization. But it seems most people don't experience anything on that black space when they're trying to visualize. So there's all this confusion in the community about what visualization should be, what's the difference between that, and doing something which I term prophantasia. And this is why we needed a specific term for that ability, which no one was going to come up with it, I think, quick enough. So I just created it. Then we have all these interesting things happening,
Good job,
like
dude.
Yeah, right.
people who come to me who may actually be experiencing hyperphantasia up here, right? But then experience they have a lack of prophantasia, so they can't project an image, so they just see black. And they come to me going, well, I think I have aphantasia, right? And for some individuals, that gets cleared up right away when we start talking about the difference. For others, though, I've worked with people where we've gone like 3-4 sessions, and it wasn't till the end of session 3, after 4 hours of talking with them, that we both had a realization moment where we went, oh, well, you're actually experiencing hyperphantasia, aren't you? And the person goes, well, yeah, I guess I am. And part of why that can happen is because these things are so subjective. You think you know what it should be like, but until it really clicks, whether it's through conversation or experience, you're not going to know exactly what to expect or exactly what it's supposed to be like, for some people anyway. Okay, so now that we've clarified the experience of prophantasia, gave some examples of what it actually looks like to have a prophantasic experience, what I want to do next in this series is start talking about how rare prophantasia may be. Okay, I've been running a survey on this for the past, year or so I have a bunch of data to sift through, and that's actually going to be our very next episode coming out next week, okay? Okay, so that's it for today's video. Make sure you jump into the Discord server if you'd like to chat with other people who are interested in making their visualization experiences more clear or more vivid. A lot of people in there always discussing and stuff like that. I'll put the join link down in the description below. And other than that, have a free chat with me. If you want to talk about some of these things, if you want to figure out where you're at in the spectrum, book that call with me. Description's down in the link, okay? Or visit my website. And come chat. Love to hear from you. And I'll be seeing you next week, all right?
Well,
Bye.
that's really interesting. Especially that, Sarah, you're able to project images like that. That's really interesting.
Yeah. So, Sarah, so you can project the images out into your real world like that, so you can see them outwardly. Which, that's interesting that the mind's eye is black when doing that, because it would seem like you'd have it in your mind's eye and then it would project out, but not having the mind's eye visual, but then putting it out is really interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, it's somewhere in between like the visual snow and all of that. When my eyes are physically closed, the blackness that my eyeballs are seeing, it's that. But it's also, it's interesting because you talk about the oil and the oil moving around, and that's what I see physically in my eyes. But there's different variations of light and dark in it. And if I'm not thinking about anything very specific, it's interesting. There's this like spinning thing that happens. It's like almost like this dark wave kind of comes over. And if I'm just chilling and I'm seeing that, especially if I'm not really tired, I'm like, I'm going to sleep. So like my brain's not tired, you know, and I'm like focusing on it visually. I can work with that and I can move stuff around a little bit and I can see things coming in and out of that space, but it's in a physical way. It's not in a
Okay.
in my mind's eye type of thing.
Okay. So yeah, the visuals that I have, like when I close my eyes, if there are any visuals, it's in a physical way. So the mind's eye is just, like I said, it's like a feeling. It's like just a knowing or a memory. But that's interesting. But the visual snow, I do have, I do get that, but I've never been able to get pictures out of it. I never tried. I never thought about that. I didn't know that was a thing. But mine is more of a, like especially if it's like a dimly lit room or like like if I'm laying on my side and there's a pillow in front of one of them, it's almost like the blackness on the one eye that's covered will start to creep over and cover the other eye as well, but it comes across as a black static, like that TV static. It comes across as that. So that's there, and it's like both eyes are open, but I can focus enough to get the blackness to cover the other eye and to fill that visual field. But I've never tried putting a picture out there.
Maybe you should try. That's interesting.
Yeah.
So, a star, I don't know. It depends on where you would see that. Because you said when I did hair, I'd start cutting, and then I could see what it would look like when it's finished. If I was the one cutting hair, I would be able to see it in my mind's eye and visualize what it was supposed to look like in the end. But it's not a physical thing. I'm not physically seeing the haircut. I'm more like in my mind's eye able to picture it like that. But if I do see anything physically in my eyeballs, usually it's very vague and not as detailed.
Yeah. So yeah, Astara, is that yeah, are you seeing it physically with your eyeballs, or is it a mind's eye imagination visual that's in there? And then Link, so Link has the visual snow too. So yeah, okay.
I'm glad he gave an
So-
example of that. That was cool.
Yeah. Yeah, and I didn't even watch this full video. I watched a little bit to get the gist of what he was talking about, and then I just sent it, and I was like, "This one, we're gonna have to go into this." So I didn't even get to that part. So that was awesome to see that.
Yeah, that was fascinating.
Yeah,
And to have Sarah in the chat who can do it, who's done it her whole life.
yeah, yeah. That's trippy. Well, it's super cool.
Wow.
What a cool ability. So now, like, you can start working with it, and like, maybe you'll be able to put a three-dimensional object in front of you like a hologram. You know, if you keep working with it and build it up, like, who knows? Like, when they say visualize an apple on a desk, maybe you can put that apple there. And,
That's so interesting.
no, it's just superimposed over reality. Okay, so it's in your mind's eye then. So it's inside, right?
Well, I don't know. That's saying
Or
over
it's superimposed
reality.
over reality. So it's
Like
yeah.
physically seeing it.
Yeah, like physically seeing it over reality. Because that would be Profantasia if that's what you're looking at. Like,
Wow,
which is-
that'd be
that's crazy. If that's
so interesting.
how that's going down. Because yeah, I had never heard of that in all of our conversations and rabbit holes we'd gone down, and all the people that we've asked I've never had anyone bring up that they could project their visual
No.
into the real world.
And
Like,
that's why I love we're talking about this shit, because boom, Sarah was like, "What? I can do this thing. I didn't realize it was, so unique and different or weird even."
yeah,
But I love it. I love that we just all have such weird, quirky shit. But unless you're talking about it, how is anybody even supposed to know that it's a special thing? Might not even realize you're doing it. It might just been like
Yeah.
a subconscious kind of thing.
yeah. And that's the thing. Like, as soon as he said visual snow, that's why I was like, well, I've seen that. Like, I didn't know that was a thing. I thought I was just being weird. And yeah, Link, exactly. I thought that was just something everybody kind of did.
Did they not? Though?
I, I don't know. Just assume nobody can see without that happening. But
Did
yeah, I mean,
any of you guys get the weird, like, oily, blobby stuff inside your eyeballs when it's closed, though? And I can see, like, it's really weird. It's kind of like an X-ray or something that I can see if I'm closing my eyes. I can make out the outlines of things that kind of look lighter, like it's coming off of the dark. Kind of like if you, like, look at a light or something like that, and then you close your eyes, how you can still see it.
mhm.
It's kind of like that.
Yeah. That's what my inner visuals are. That's what I got. Like, it's just a vague. And if I sit and meditate on something and like really focus on only my visual sense, those get stronger and like it starts moving more, so I actually start seeing more things, which I've done that for art pieces before where I'm really trying to figure out what I want to do, and I let those come out, and then I'll work with whatever vagueness I get from that. But that's the most imagery I get. But yeah. And then like you're saying where you can move it around, I wouldn't say so much as I'm moving around, but I have known since I was a little bitty kid that if I close my eyes, it's got to be very dark, but that blackness, it almost becomes like a wall, and I can mentally like push it, and if I like push it, I can push it and like let it snap back at one point, which sounds kind of weird, but if it snaps back correctly, it vibrates like a rubber band, and it's like, but it doesn't just do that visually, it makes me feel like I'm doing
Oh,
that. Like I can
interesting.
feel myself like vibrate, and it's just a fun thing that I've done since I was a little kid. And yeah, Sarah, I push it real hard.
That's so
But
interesting.
yeah, and it's hard for me to get it like that. Like I have to like work with it, but then finally, if I like put it to the right spot and let it go, it snaps and it vibrates me, and I feel it. It's like I'm going back and forth. It's like a ride, kind of.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
You never talked about that
Weird.
before, have you?
No, never really mentioned that.
That's really cool.
I used to see lights when I was young too. They went away, but I used to see they were
Aliens.
aliens. No, they were. It was like rows of dotted lights. So let's say it was like 2 rows mainly, and it'd be like it would always start out as red and blue, alternating like LED lights, boop, 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 and then another row down here, and they would start little and they would come at me and like zoom past. If I sat in like darkness and just like stared into the blackness, I would see these rows of lights, and I used to sit and hang out and watch those.
Interesting. With color.
Yeah, but then they went away. I mean, I bet middle school I didn't have none of that was there. But I remember as a kid sitting and watching those, and the longer I watched them, the more colors I got and the more lights there were, which was interesting, especially now having not much of anything.
That's so fascinating.
Sarah said I can kind of move the visual snow around, but it hurts my eyes after a bit. Yeah, it's rough on the eyeballs. It's bad for your vision. Visual snow, not good. Yeah, this is
so cool.
this is weird. And Link, yeah, to assume that nobody could see without that happening, like that's how we're all kind of wandering around, just assuming this is what everybody's going through. But like the visual snow, like it's only in very, very specific situations that I ever get it, and it's interesting.
Can't start. For me, with the haircut example, I can shuffle through different images, or if someone explains what they want, I can see it first, and talk them out of it if it's going to turn out different than what they want. See, I would be able to do that too for sure, but it would be mind's eye. I'd be able to have a clear picture inside of my head, but not in the room with me. Like, I like how he was like, okay, you're kind of making a carbon copy of this thing, and then you're manipulating it.
Yeah.
But that's interesting.
Super interesting.
Because showing, like, the triangle on the wall, like, that was, like, a very fuzzy kind of thing. I guess my question is then, especially for Sarah, since you've been doing this forever, how detailed are the things that you are able to see physically?
Yeah.
And then, same thing for you, Astara. He's still confused as to what he was describing. He was saying to be able to physically see something, like physical, with your eyeballs in the space in which you're in.
Yeah.
Instead of the imagination. Instead of imagining it, it's like able to visually put it into a whole room.
Yeah, I said almost like a hologram. So like your eyes are open and you're looking at a room, like with the apple on the desk. Like to be able to look at a desk and physically place that apple on the desk in front of you and see it there.
Good night, Steve.
Oh, good night, Steve.
Sweet dreams. I hope you enjoyed the show today.
Yeah.
We enjoyed you
Thanks for
being
hanging
here.
out.
For sure. We'll see you soon.
Oh, and a star. Okay, yes, so you can do that. Hey, that's trippy. That's not normal. No, that's awesome. That's a
really
super
cool.
cool thing. But then, yeah, the way that he was talking about it, like working with people, it sounds like at least that is something that can be developed. Like you can work on that and develop it and, improve your ability to be able to see things like that, which is interesting. But which makes me think that it's all just neural connections that you're working on. I think that your brain, you could probably work on anything, just like a muscle. You could probably work on it and get it, whether it's mind's eye or physical.
I use the skill when I'm reorganizing the closet storage or figuring out a visual puzzle. Physically. That's so interesting to be able to layer.
I just stare at
over
it.
Yeah.
Okay.
See, I can do that. I'm the Tetris master. Give myself the title of Tetris master. Undefeated. Love it. But I love Tetrising objects. So packing a moving truck or something like that, or organizing a shelf or something like that. I love doing that. I think it's so fun and interesting to find the most efficient way to do a thing. But in my mind, I'm definitely building this thing in the mind, and I'm looking at all the different pieces, and I'm able to kind of be like, no, no, okay, how about this over here, yes, and then it's like ding, and then I have the physical, like, visual inside of my head that says this is the most efficient path. It's like Slime Mold trying to do the fucking mazes. I like do that where I'm like, how about this way, how about this way, no, click, there it is. But it's never actually physical with my eyeballs.
Yeah, you're seeing it in your head, whereas Astara, you're seeing it out and about, and then Sarah, same thing, you're seeing it out in your real world, which Sarah says it's hard to explain. I can put myself in different environments and situations, but it's in front of my face with my eyes open. That's crazy. That's trippy to me. You're blowing my mind.
Yeah, because I could have my eyes open. I mean, I'm sitting here right now having my eyes open, and I'm playing Tetris in my fucking head right now. Like, but I'm not seeing Tetris in the living room.
Yeah. Which would be awesome. That'd be good.
That would be really cool. What an interesting thing to be able to do. Huh. That's super fascinating.
Yep. Let's see. Do I have anything else?
It drives other people nuts if they're in the same room and want to rush you. That's funny. Yeah, I never want to, like, be an asshole about it. And I try to very hard to not be, like, bossy or, like, controlling over situations, but I feel like sometimes I very nicely am like, please, please just step aside. Do me a favor. I appreciate your help. I'm just gonna need you to step that way real quick. Give me a second, and then I can fucking figure it out. But when people are coming in and they're like, burp, 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 and I'm like, oh God, and I'm looking at it physically and rearranging it in my mind, and when there's little empty fucking spaces and shit, I'm like, oh my God, I can't do it. So, like, especially with puzzles and doing those kind of things, it is interesting because I didn't really think about it like this before, but I do try different visual combinations inside of my head to figure out what is going to be the best. And some of it's just instinct too. Some of it is just like an instinctual, like one thing at a time, and I'm rolling with it. But a lot of times I have a more of a plan. So especially with moving trucks and stuff like that, like I don't have a great physical form, so my job is telling people where to put stuff, and then sometimes they'll put stuff in spots it's not supposed to be, and I'll go in and I'll just like move shit around. I'm like,
Doesn't it right?
yeah, especially if it's very limited space where it's like we have a lot of shit and we have this one size truck and there's no room for empty space, you know, like you got to do it right.
Yeah, it's true.
So, and I would imagine, I guess, people without that inner vision, that it would be harder, just like it's harder to remember people's faces and it's harder to remember certain things. It would be a lot harder to be really proficient at puzzle Tetrising things if you can't really visualize in the future, you know, because I'm going like, I'm 10 steps ahead already. I'm not just in the moment right at that moment. I'm kind of 10 steps ahead. So I could see how that could be a challenge to navigate past that.
Yeah, for sure.
Because you're like, what? It looks fine right here. And I'm like, babe, I love you. But you here, take this thing. Put it over here. So. Oh, it's also conservation. I don't have the strength or energy to keep redoing things.
Yeah.
Yep, trying to find most efficient method, do it once, and be done with it. I think that's a pretty good skill. So, do you want a weird thing? Probably. When I was in 8th grade, I was in science class. I must have been real out of it. I came back to reality when everyone was looking at me. They asked me to stop whistling, and I don't know how to whistle.
Oh, what? That's just possession.
I think you might have got possessed a little bit.
Yeah, that's not the same.
Oh, that's fucking spooky.
Yeah, that's weird. That's a weird one.
That's
It's like daydreaming and you were in like another land and then come back and everybody's just
and you
like,
don't even know
staring
how
at
to
you.
whistle. That's just weird. You don't know how to whistle.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah, that's weird.
Does anybody else not know how to whistle? I'm intrigued. Huh.
It's not something everybody can do.
Definitely possession.
Definitely possession.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
what else could it possibly be?
Yeah.
That's crazy. Interesting. Oh, you just zoned out like that. That's, huh. I have questions about that.
Yeah.
Weird. Okay. So, that being said, now I'm curious. I want to ask another question to the chat, and I want to talk about dreams. How we perceive our dreams. Because as somebody with hyperphantasia, my dreams, when I remember them, which I have not been as good at remembering them over the past couple of years, which sucks. But when I do remember them, they're extremely vivid, as if it's a movie set or whatever. You know, every little detail is there, and if I remember it well enough, then I can go through afterwards into that space in my mind's eye and revisit it and kind of walk around and look at things in the space. So your aphantasia, that's just like how you think in your head, but when you dream, how do you dream? Is it the same?
No, it's a little more vivid when I dream. It's still fairly black screen-esque for the most part. and vague details. But I do see things and like wander around these lands and wherever I'm going, but the details are minimal. The faces, I don't really see the faces or know the faces. It's like a, again, it's just like an understanding that this is this person rather than seeing the details of the face. It's a figure that I know is this person. But yeah, it's pretty vague still in the dreams.
Okay.
So it's always nighttime, and it's always like,
Really?
I mean, not like nighttime, but it's always just like dark.
Oh,
and,
okay.
like,
Okay.
yeah.
But do you see colors? Or is
Mm,
it black and white?
faintly colors, very faint.
Okay. So it's easier for you to tell the difference sometimes when you're having a memory recall, whether it was a dream or not. Like it seems more distinctly dreamy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that sucks, Princess, that you don't remember your dreams anymore. That's
Oh,
too
really?
bad, man. But when you did dream, did you also, because since you do have, it sounds like hyperphantasia as well, did you dream in extreme detail also? Because this shit's like a fucking movie, man. It's crazy. But it mimics what's in my head. So I was wondering, as far as yours, it's interesting that you do have some visuals.
And I will say, if, like, whenever I'm smoking weed and then I stop, the dreams get more vivid then, and they hit harder then, and then they fade back to normal. Like, if I'm smoking, I just don't dream. I generally don't dream most of the time, but if I'm smoking, I'm definitely not dreaming. But whenever I stop smoking, it ramps up and it gets way more vivid, and then it mellows back down to nothing again.
Wow. Okay, One Love's in the same boat.
Yeah.
And then also, Sarah was saying that Andrew doesn't remember his dreams and just thinks he doesn't dream at all.
Gotcha.
And
Oh yeah,
interesting
she
as
said
far
up there
as
too
these-
that Andrew was aphantasia.
Yeah.
I saw
Yeah,
that up
yeah.
there too.
But he doesn't remember it at all. Wow. I know Star was saying there's always placeholders,
Mm-hmm. That's
which is really, that
Yeah.
sounds kind of creepy, dude.
that's a good way to put it. Like it's a vague figure, but I know who it is. You know.
I see him like a fucking person, which sometimes I wonder, like, it's so distinctly a person in my dream that I'm like, okay. Either A, I invented facial features and invented a person in a split second, which is possible, I guess, or this is actually a real person that is out there that I'm picking up on them, or maybe I saw them at the grocery store and didn't really like connect that that's who it was or something like that. But it's so distinctly a person that I wonder who the fuck is this person. They seem so real. How could this person not exist? It's kind of like those weird AI things where they're like, this person does not exist thing.
Yeah.
It's like that where I'm like, wow, it's Bob, you know? Like,
Yeah.
how could Bob not exist? Did I invent Bob? Did I architect his face, you know? Like, I don't know. I don't know. But I don't think I've ever really noticed if there's like blurry faces like that. It sounds kind of weird.
Yeah.
You know who they represent. Okay.
And Draconis, yeah, those
Interesting.
smoking weed kind of prevents the dreaming. Yeah, I think that honestly, I think that's got something to do with the short-term memory being affected. I think that the dreams they're probably there, but when you're smoking, your brain's just not holding on to those at that time. Like whether you smoked right before you went to bed or not, I think just having those chemicals in your body until they wear off completely, I think it just keeps you from really remembering the dreams as they come. That's just my theory. I don't really know. And yeah, Astara, I'm not sure if they don't have faces or if it's as much as they're just not important. That's, yeah. Well, it's not the focus, so you're just like wandering along.
Yeah.
And yeah, Kirby, I don't know if it's not really creepy because it's, even though I can't see all the details and everything, I know who that is. Like, if it's Sammy, like, I know it's Sammy. Like, I don't have to have all the details there to have the emotional feeling that she gives me all the time anyway. So, even though I don't see all the details, I feel the good emotions that come with it, or like, a mom or a friend or whoever it is. There's the pleasant emotions that go with it, so it's not creepy until the emotions of that person are creepy, and then it's like, this is a scary person, and then it becomes a nightmare.
I have had similar things where it doesn't look like the person, but I just know that it's the person. They look different or something, but I can know that it's them. Which is weird.
Yeah.
And also something that I find really weird is like the fact that I don't realize that I'm dreaming the majority of the time. I have been lucid a few handfuls of times. It happens every now and then. But I find it crazy sometimes that I do not realize in the moment that I am dreaming because some weird shit's going on. I guess maybe because it just feels so realistic. Everything's so detailed. It feels real. So I don't even question maybe this isn't real. But I feel like I should.
Yeah.
I feel like I should be like, well, that doesn't make any fucking sense. Like, how is that happening? Oh, I must be dreaming. And that's annoying to me that I can't do that more often. I wake up and I'm like, that was ridiculous.
Yeah.
How did I know that
Why
was
did I
a
not
dream?
know?
Oh my god.
Yeah.
It's annoying. But there have been times that I have known. And then that's so cool. Like, that's like the coolest thing. I wish I could do that more often.
Yeah.
I genuinely do. But yeah, okay, that's good. I wanted to talk about dreams and see where everybody was at as far as that goes. Because sometimes I can, for a second, confuse like dreams for reality when I'm thinking about it. If there's nothing really super bizarre going on, like, and I'm like, yeah, that one place that I was at that one time, and I'm like,
Wait, that wasn't real.
I was never there. It has the same feeling and imagery as a memory. Like, they kind of, there's not really much differentiation between the memory and the dream snapshots that I have too. Sometimes, I mean, I know I can remember, oh, I had this dream and it looks like this, but I don't know. It's weird.
Interesting.
Ooh, you get the deja vu because of dreams. I've had that a few times too. It's not super often, but it is pretty trippy.
Yeah.
Actually, when we were in England, I think it was, we were driving down the road and June was like, I dreamed it.
Right.
And it happened to Tavia when we were driving through the desert too. She's like, I dreamed this specific
Interesting.
place. Yeah. Yeah, it's cool.
I've had that happen once or twice where it's so vivid that I was pretty sure I dreamt it, but
No, I believe you, Sarah. I didn't. I don't think you're full of shit. No, it's really cool.
that's okay. It's like on the last stream we were talking about all the physical stuff, and Sammy was like, "I got that, I got that, I got that." It's like,
I know it was weird. I was like,
Sometimes
wow,
it is
I just
everything.
got all these weird anomalies and stuff.
Yeah.
So
and yeah, it sounds
it's
like
fascinating.
One Love and I are on the same page when it comes to dreaming.
Mm-hmm.
Dreaming the same there. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow. That's
Well, going from there, should we go into inner monologue?
cool. Yes.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So, talking about what we see in our heads, now we're going to go into thoughts and your inner monologue. I think it's trippy that some people just have no inner monologue. There's no inner voice whatsoever. And then Sammy and I, one of the main differences that we talked about just recently is like whenever you hear a song in your head, what that song sounds like in your head. And like for her, it's she hears the song, she hears the person singing it, it's the song, all the notes are there, and she's got the full song playing. For me, it's more of a like, especially like the lyrics and the words and stuff, like it sounds like my voice singing the song, if as if I could sing the song really well and really mimic the person, but it's me singing the song.
It's so weird that it's you.
Me making the music in the background and like doing the whole thing. But as far as like hearing the song, it's very difficult for me to literally hear the song itself. And yeah, Astara, some people, nothing, like there's no dialogue, they don't, whenever they're thinking to themselves, they're not talking to themselves. And like I always like to ask, whenever people, when you refer to yourself in your head, like if you're thinking about something and you're like talking about, oh, I'm gonna go make a sandwich, is it a I'm gonna make a sandwich, a you should go make a sandwich, or we should go make a sandwich? And for me, it's always an us and a we in my head. I'm always plural in my head, and I kind of think it's like the me, myself, and I thing. I think it's my consciousness and my body, essentially, I think is what I'm referring to. But I always have. It's always been plural in my head. So when you're talking to yourself, how do you refer to you?
I
Okay.
was like, ooh, I need to get this, or ooh, I need to do that. Yeah, it's very much a I.
Okay.
It's not from an objective perspective when I'm talking to myself. It's just like I'm acknowledging myself
Okay. Yeah.
as myself.
Okay. Kirby too, Sarah, same thing. So always an I.
What Star
Astara,
says, like, let's.
you're a let's.
So you're a we.
Yeah. Are you? So you're a we and an us. With all the things, but
The royal we. Okay.
the royal we. Yeah, we should be doing this.
Interesting. Me
Or
and
I
Sarah
have
have a lot of
conversations
things.
about sandwiches.
Me and Sarah see things
Yeah.
very similarly. We
Yeah,
have
it
a lot
seems
of
like-
the same.
Seems like you're on the same
ways.
page a lot.
Yeah,
with all that.
that's kind of cool.
One love is an I. Okay. Yeah, and I talked to, I forgot who it was. It may have been Charlie, but one of our friends, it was very much, they speak to themselves as another person. So it's always a, you should do this, or, it's outward. So it's still
Interesting.
singular, but it's not me, it's a you. Like they're cheering themselves on,
That's interesting. I wonder what this means. I wonder what they
Yeah.
translate to as far as something within us.
Yeah.
Like if it has anything to do with the way we were spoke to as a child or something, like, because I'm thinking like that you should do this. I wonder if it's kind of like your parents talking to you and you, you're getting your shit together. So therefore, oh, I'm channeling my dad type of energy type of thing to tell me what it is that I need to do.
Yeah.
I don't
Maybe,
know.
yeah.
That's just a shot in the dark. I have no
Yeah,
idea.
I don't know. Because for my whole life, I've always been we and us. I've always been plural, and it was not until I was an adult when I really thought about it and was like, why am I plural? Like, why is there multiple of me? But now I just kind of chalk it up to being, different consciousnesses in myself. But yeah, once I started asking about it, I was like, does everyone do that? Like, how do you talk to yourself? And everybody's
Do you
got a different
talk
thing.
to yourself a lot?
Constantly. That's all it is one conversation. That's the only thought processes that I have when I'm thinking about things. It's me talking about it. It's a dialogue.
It makes sense because you're not as visual, so you're much louder
Yeah.
in your head.
Yeah.
And how you process things, it's much more that, okay. I definitely have a very loud inner monologue, but I don't feel the need to talk to myself as much. I more so am playing through things and playing through scenarios.
Are you watching those scenarios?
It depends. But a lot of times, if I'm just focusing on the voice, if I'm just doing other stuff, and I'm having this whole like conversation, well, it's not really a conversation because I'm not talking to myself a lot of the times. It's just this like stream of consciousness kind of coming out. It's just this dialogue that is there, but it's not necessarily like I'm not pep talking myself. But today there was like one moment where when I went into Home Goods, I was like, I'm not going to get a cart because I don't need to get a bunch of shit. I'm going to not get a cart, and that's going to keep me from getting too much shit. And I saw a couple things, and in my mind, and I even ended up saying it out loud because it was such a strong thing. I just kind of said it out loud. I was like, I need to get a cart, and I went and got a cart. So it's more things kind of like that, or scenarios being played out in my mind or whatever, but it's not as much like, okay, what do I need to do to fix this situation, or what do I need to do? It's just more the situation. I'm evaluating the situation without addressing myself in it most of the time.
Yeah.
But yours is more direct. Where
Yeah,
you're
it's
having conversations.
it's very much talking my way through things and talking to me and telling me what I need to do. Not until I was meditating for a while was I able to turn off that voice, which I could stop the conversation in my head, but it took me a long time to be able to turn that off and then notice thoughts behind it and notice where those thoughts were kind of coming from and what was driving that conversation. And now I can do it, but it's hard. It's real hard. It's almost like I have to mute myself and like turn up a back volume real loud and really focus and pay attention, and it's not as productive. I don't feel like it's as productive. Like, it showed me that there is something else that's driving the thoughts that are going on. Like, there's a deeper me in there, but it's not as loud, which is interesting.
That is interesting.
Let's see. The star has got multiple lines of conversation. Draconis, if everything is a you, I would think they find it hard to take responsibility because then when the self-berating, it's still at the you. So, yeah. So it's not you taking the responsibility. You're putting it on someone.
That's very astute
That's
observation.
a good thought.
Yeah. It's a projecting or removing of that responsibility.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And I'm very responsible with what it is that I do and say, so that makes sense why it would be an I. I'm taking full responsibility for my actions and my words and everything.
Yeah.
I never try to like push that on other people or another form of myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
That might have some kind of.
And then Sarah, I
relation.
have anxiety and depression brain, so it likes to make stuff up to tell me things, but it's still not you. It's still an I. Yeah. So your mind is just running on things.
Okay, and Sarah said, do you have multiple voices, or is it just the one with like an echo?
Oh, me? Oh. No, it's just me. It's my voice. It's literally me talking. But even like if I'm singing a song in my head, or like there's a song that's stuck in my head, it's me singing it, and it's my own voice on it. But in my head, I'm really good at it. So it's like I can sound really close to whoever it is that I'm singing. It's almost like an amazing impressionist, and I can mimic their voice, but it's my voice. It's me singing it.
So fascinating.
Yeah.
Okay, speaking of songs in your head, I all the time have music going on in the back of my head. Sometimes it's more in the forefront. Sometimes it is like it's obviously this song and I'm rocking out to it and it's like my soundtrack. But sometimes it's almost like, if like somebody in the other room is playing music and you can hear that it's music, but you can't quite make out what song it is, but you are definitely aware that there's music playing in the background. It's like that a lot, especially if I'm thinking about other things. Like even while we're just sitting here doing this podcast, there's music happening, but because I'm distracted and because I'm talking about other things, I'm not focusing on it, I'm not quite aware of what it is. But it's never just like quiet without a soundtrack ever.
Yeah.
I don't think ever. I don't know if I've ever had a moment. I mean, maybe I have, but I cannot recall a time where I have had just dead silence in my fucking head.
Yeah. Not unless I do it on purpose.
Okay, so what about you guys? Do you have like a radio station in your fucking head? Do you have it sometimes or not at all? He says your radio is broken, but sometimes I can control the station.
Okay.
It's broken.
You mean broken like it doesn't generally play? Or you can't control it except for every once in a while? Yeah, because I've generally got some kind of song going in my head, or like the tune of something, or like I'm tapping something out, like with whether it's my fingers or whatever. I generally have at least a beat and a rhythm is generally there. But then a lot of times, like, you'll ask me, like, what song is your head right now? And I'll be like, and it goes away immediately. But if I'm just, like, wandering around, there's something. But I think your analogy of it being, like, in another room, you don't really know what it is kind of that, yeah.
It kind of annoys me when I'm like, oh, it's there. But what is it? I don't know what it is. But
What is that
sometimes
song?
it's so fucking loud. And then ever get like an earworm where you just have a song stuck in your head?
Mm-hmm.
And that is intense. That's really loud.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
Those
yeah.
are really fucking loud. Sometimes so loud where I'm like, oh my God, shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
But I think that, I don't know, my ability to recall music and remember lyrics and remember songs that I haven't heard in 30 fucking years, and it comes on and I'm just like singing it. Like, it's so weird that I'm able to recall that much and remember some of these things that most people will be like, I haven't heard that forever. Like, I recognize it, but like, how the fuck am I supposed to remember the lyrics? Like, for some reason it sticks, and I wonder if because there's always this radio going on in my head and it just like pounds it in sometimes. Sometimes
Maybe.
it's just fucking
Yeah.
just
Maybe like those songs that you're hearing in the other room that you can't really pick out. That's your brain running through those songs that you only heard that one time.
maybe.
But then in the background, your brain is just like running with it. So whenever it pops up front, you know it all of a sudden, and you're like, why do I know that?
It's possible. It's really weird. Actually, just last night, Justin was talking about it. He's like, man, this song is creepy. And he named the artist. And I didn't recognize the artist name at all. But he goes, you've probably heard it. It's Young Girl, Get Out of My Mind. And I immediately burst into song with him and sang the entire fucking chorus of it. And it's weird because, I mean, I like that song, but I don't even know the fucking last time I've heard it. It doesn't come on my playlist or whatever. It's definitely a song that I've heard a bunch back in the day. But I could not tell you how long it's been since I've heard it. And I was just like, booyah, let me sing the song with you,
always
like
works.
on command, you know? It's so weird. And you're right, maybe it is just like, there's just shit constantly playing and it's like, it's burning in there. I think maybe because I have such a soundtrack memory that my brain chooses to hold on to all the music that it gets the best that it can because it knows that it's going to be playing it and it wants to have as much
We need more music.
information. Yeah, and it's like, all right, we don't want just the chorus of this fucking song, so it kind of like automatically says this is relevant. This is relevant information for you and the way your brain works, so we're going to go ahead and hold
Your
on to
CD
that.
collection is vast.
It's very vast. And all the fucking jingles and shit.
Yeah.
Jingles from the fucking 80s. Why? Why do
Yeah.
I have them? I don't need them, but they're fucking there all the time. They're just right there. They don't
That's
always get my
true.
head. Sometimes they're in my head, but if you just said, like, my buddy, I would be like, "Pfft, my buddy. I got it. Let's do it.
Totally.
You know, I don't even know the last time I heard my buddy. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So why? I don't know why we do this.
So Draconis, oh, your radio station's on all the time. Then every once in a while you can change the station. Okay. And then Sarah, I can hear the songs like the band was here, but usually it's quiet. Okay, so it's not just always going for you. That's interesting.
Well, I think maybe volume-wise quiet, that it's not necessarily loud, or does that mean usually your brain is?
It's just usually in the background. Yeah.
Yeah, please elaborate on that one.
Yeah.
Because I took that as it's always the music's always there, but it's not blaring.
Yeah. Yeah, I took it as silent. It's generally silent, but you can make music if you
Okay.
want.
Yes, please.
A star has had Oingo Boingo stuck in her head for a few days. Yeah.
That's a pretty good one to have stuck in your head.
Yeah.
Okay, Princess says, my head never shuts up. Never has and never will. I've learned to quiet it a bit by becoming forced from becoming or from being totally type A, but the parts of the medicine, Xanax and Valium worked on are now back because the new rules they made. Oh, the new rules.
Hmm.
Oh, someone was just telling me the other day about it was JMO was talking about Xanax, where they've recently linked it to dementia, and they're trying to pull back on that. I wonder if that's what that is. That's interesting.
Weird. Okay.
Interesting.
My love for you is way offline. Yeah, Sarah knows that song. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're much too young.
Better run, girl. You're much too young, girl. Yeah, we had a whole conversation about this, and we were like,
Yeah.
that's kind of fucked up, dude. And I'm like, but how old was he when he wrote the song? Like, we didn't know how old he was when he wrote the song. Was he like 60? And then like the girl, like that's like creepy, or was he like a young dude? And maybe the girl was a little too young or whatever. And we figured out he was 25.
Yeah. And I'm
When he
sure
wrote
he
that
was
song.
like 16 or something.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah, and we were like, okay, it's not so great. We're like, we're gonna go ahead and hope it's like after puberty, young girls.
Yeah,
we're gonna
hopefully.
cross our fingers on that one.
Yeah.
Okay, she said, oh, music is not always there. It's usually quiet unless someone mentions the line of a song. Oh.
Okay.
Oh.
Interesting.
Oh, man.
Oh, and Astara's got something weird.
Oh,
I'm
I'm
ready.
ready.
Ready for it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Interesting that it's quiet. I don't even know what it would be like to have quiet brain. Oh, shit, JT, what's up?
JT? Hello.
Hey,
hello.
girl,
Hello.
How's it going?
Hi.
We're talking about the inner workings of the mind and
Yeah.
the way that we process information and how we think about things. So, question, do you have a radio station playing in your fucking head all the time? Or is it quiet? Or is it usually quiet, sometimes music? Can you hear the music as if the band's actually playing, or do you hear yourself singing it? Tell us. Welcome.
Yeah.
And tell us.
Yeah. Do you always have music going, and how do you experience it if you do?
Yeah, it's been a really cool conversation. We're
Yeah.
really chatting with the chat, seeing what everybody,
Yeah,
how
because
everybody's brain works. It's
this
really
kind of
cool.
started coming from a conversation about inner dialogue and how some people have no inner dialogue, and then some people, their dialogue in their head is as if other people are talking to them, or they're talking to other people, or like me, like my dialogue in my head is always my voice. It's always me talking to me. So we kind of started with all that and ended up getting into songs and how you experience the songs in your head. So it's been interesting conversation. We're learning so much about chat right now.
We are. It's really cool.
And
Yeah.
then Stara, weird thing, sleep. Me does things that I find out about later. Oh, weird. You're one of those things.
Sleep.
One of those things. You're one of those people.
Oh,
So you like making sandwiches
man.
in your sleep, and you wake up and there's a sandwich on the counter.
The weirdest is the makeup selfies. I found photos on my phone of me with weird makeup on.
What? No
Holy
way,
shit.
really?
You're a
Weird.
sleepwalker and a sleep makeup
You're a
person?
Sleep makeupper.
Are you on sleep medication? Because I know they say like the Ambien makes people do shit while they're asleep and they don't even know what they're doing.
Yeah.
But that's cool that you're like doing.
I'm a
things.
sleep rearranger.
What do you
Just,
rearrange
like,
in your sleep?
rearrange your furniture in your sleep. They take place in a 10-minute time frame, and I take the makeup off afterwards.
Whoa.
Weird. That's weird.
Whoa.
At least you clean it off afterwards. That's nice.
I take stuff off the walls and I move things from the fridge to the cabinet. Shut up.
See, that's funny. Yeah. I'm glad
And you don't
I
remember it
didn't
all.
do any of those. Wow. Weird. Okay.
That is
I've
bizarre.
sleepwalked a couple times in my life when I was a little